What the heck is the National Quantum Initiative Act, and how does that apply to the weird stuff we talk about on this channel? So let's dive into it. Recently, Ivanka Trump announced the National Quantum Initiative Act passed in the Senate last week. This legislation will accelerate quantum research and development and help secure U.S. leadership in quantum technology. Looking forward to it passing in the House this week. And so let's take a quick look-see at what's going on here. This is the bill, H.R. 6227. This bill directs the President to implement a national quantum initiative program to, among other things, establish the goals and priorities for a 10-year plan to accelerate the development of quantum information science and technology applications. The President must establish a National Quantum Initiative Advisory Committee to advise the President and Subcommittee on Quantum Information Science and Technology Research and Development. Oh yeah, by the way, if you like these kinds of topics, you're watching Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics, where we talk about life after death, astral projection, paranormal things, stuff like that. And if you would go down and hit the subscribe button, that will keep this channel alive, and I really need you to help out with that. Okay, back to what we're doing. So why does this matter? And firstly, I would like to mention a preface that I like to stay out of politics, but I don't subscribe to the pathological hatred of the Trump administration. I think they've done some stupid things. I think Trump has done some very stupid things, especially on Twitter, especially when it comes to handling sensitive issues like people at the border who maybe need food, medicine, stuff like this. So Trump is by no means a flawless president. I don't subscribe either to the people who say Trump is like this messiah, because we see that. This is why I don't like politics that much. But I like to look at things objectively, and what we have seen is a lot of interesting stuff coming out of the Trump administration that I think can be looked at in a nonpartisan way. So this bill is interestingly vague. So what could this quantum information technology be, and what will presidents be getting briefed about in regard to this? What this bill is showing is an effort to start taking seriously the real science, which is non-material science. Yes, we know what quantum technology is. Anyone who has one of these is using quantum technology in the creation of circuit boards and all that kind of good stuff. Quantum mechanics is a nuts and bolts field, but quantum as a scientific pursuit also opens the gateways to non-material physics, and it opens the gateways to properties of the mind, let's just say. When we talk about things like remote viewing, the abilities for the mind to project itself to anywhere at any time, people in the metaphysical world, the parapsychology world, people like Dean Radin, Michael Talbot, a lot of this is hypothesized on a deep quantum level involving quantum entanglement, the double slit experiment, the ability to instantaneously process information at any location at any time using quantum communication. This could explain ultimately our natural sixth sense abilities and telepathic communication abilities that we know we possess here as well as on levels above this world. So really, so quantum anything is opening up the pathway to the new science, which, or as I should say, the real science that has been ultimately suppressed and ridiculed by mainstream physicalists for a long time, and something many people would say is intentional. So, regardless of what you think of Trump, I will propose to you that there is more than meets the eye with the Trump administration. And it's why I reluctantly, despite wanting to stay out of politics, kind of support this administration being in office, because there's certain things going on behind the scenes. And one example of this, and this information comes out of a researcher named Michael Salla, Dr. Michael Salla. He has some interesting extraterrestrial related books out there if you like that kind of thing. It's not for everybody. But Trump's uncle was a man named John G. Trump. He was an American physicist, inventor, electrical engineer, professor at MIT, and heavily connected to Nikola Tesla. So yes, the Trump family isn't all buffoons with bad haircuts, shouting people down on Twitter. In fact, the Trump family, there's more to it than meets the eye. Now, according to Michael Sala's research, John Trump was tasked with basically investigating Nikola Tesla and presenting the information, or rather that the technology Tesla was working on, to MIT and ultimately the government, which unfortunately may have led ultimately to Nikola Tesla being sort of depersoned, deplatformed, losing all his money, and basically being attacked by the powers that be. Why would people not want Tesla's information out there? He was working on something called, didn't want to pronounce it incorrectly, the Van der Graaf generators, which involves electromagnetism and ultimately electro-gravitic technology. And so if you go into the conspiracy side of things, which I would say this is a conspiracy light, because this stuff is more like exopolitical history. It's not necessarily talking about the conspiracy theories we think of, like on Facebook when you see people flipping out about moon landings and things like that. We're talking about basically exopolitical history. So anti-gravitic technology is widely believed to be the thing that propels flying saucers. And many of the flying saucers people saw back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s that created that whole, Plan 9 from outer space pop cultural phenomenon of old black and white films with flying saucers dangling off of fishing hooks. Those may have been made by terrestrial governments using electrogravitic technology. And in fact, my grandfather, Arthur Mitchell, he used to show my mom stuff that he'd get from, where he was working at in the Navy, and he worked a little tiny bit with none other than Wernher von Braun, and he had, a communication, a dialogue with him enough that he learned a few things, and then he used to show my mom diagrams of flying saucers, and used to show her how they operated through electrogravitic technology, and they were being made by secret programs and could, revolutionize everything and launch us into a new Star Trek future. Well, that never happened. Why did that never happen? Well, if you talk to exopolitical experts, it's because all that technology was ultimately fostered by what some would call the deep state, a kind of a division of like the military-industrial complex, the governments, the private sectors, joining forces on the uppermost echelon to reap the benefits of incredibly high-tech technology without allowing it to spread out to the masses. And why wouldn't they allow it to spread out to the masses? Because electrogravitic technology would bankrupt Shell Oil, Texaco, etc., etc. And without all that money coming in, they wouldn't be able to keep funding their own projects and ultimately hoarding all of their technology and basically keeping humanity held back, using the 99% of us as just cattle to generate money, so that a small select group of people can, live high on the hog, so to speak, with all this technology which only they have access to. This is what the conclusions have been of a lot of exopolitical researchers and a lot of insiders, people like William Tompkins, who passed away at age 94 and came out with a testimony that included the notion that testimony of the recounting of when he was working for the Navy and essentially designing spaceships in the 1940s and 50s. So there is definitely something going on with all of this. So again, according to Michael Sala, the researcher, John Trump was also involved with the Roswell crash. and it was his job as like an emissary of MIT to investigate the technology that came out of what was potentially an extraterrestrial crash landing. So John Trump may have had, well, we know he did have a connection with his nephew, and Donald Trump would have grown up knowing about all this stuff. And this is why people think that that Donald Trump is essentially not working on the inside with basically the deep state level that so many other presidents have been working under. And as a result, he is trying to finagle a way to get the public adjusted to all this technology coming out into the open. So that's where we get things like Quantum Technology Initiative, the Space Force, now known as the Space Command, and other weird stuff that comes out of this administration that's also synchronous to other sort of disclosure-related activities like the Pentagon UFO Research Committee that was disclosed publicly about this time last year. And there's a guy named Luis Elizondo who appeared all over the media basically talking about flying saucers. And so many people analyze this as being a very staged event. But again, this could all be coming out of the Trump administration, who wants to bring us into the new science. And the new science, the real science, involves not only electro-gravitic technology, being able to have spaceships, being able to essentially save the environment, ending the reliance on coal and fossil fuel, but it also involves moving into a more non-materialist physics, which would mean wide-scale acceptance of psychic technology, remote viewing, and life after death. So, I wish that all this cool stuff was happening out of the Trump administration and not so much of like the kind of crazy stuff that divides everybody and causes so many problems, border walls. So it is a shame, it is frustrating to watch all this division take place. It would be great if we had an administration that is focused on ushering in a new technological era, but it was more, I guess, bipartisan. But you can't have it all. I am watching this closely. I hope it turns into something. Tell me what you think down in the comments below. And again, if you like this stuff, we talk about all kinds of metaphysical subjects on the Facebook group. You can join that. You can buy my books about life after death by checking out the description of this video in the YouTube description. And that's it. I will see you on the next video.